reason I like to place my patient prone is if you will remember, and he's going to get tired, so I'll hold him up here a little bit. This is somebody who's got a bad ankle injury. Not every single ankle sprain requires this, but if it's a grade 2 or 3 or an ankle fracture, certainly you want to mobilize this really well. I could just do a sugar tong, I could just do a posterior, but I'm going to do a Cadillac, which is both, which is really going to lock them in well, still allow for some swelling, to be very comfortable. My most important thing is 90 degrees, and the reason I like putting them prone, they can just kind of relax there. They will get tired, so you can kind of hold them up here if you need to, and you can let their other leg rest, but gravity is going to help me hold that piece in place. It's going to help me hold that piece in place so that I can wrap with an ace wrap. If I have him seated, and you can imagine this thing is here, he's going to have to help hold that. The other one is flopping down, it's falling down, I'm trying to wrap. It's really difficult. So this is an excellent way to do the splint so that you can use gravity to help you. The other thing that I like is because of gravity, just kind of relax your foot. A lot of times patients are in that position, and that's not acceptable. So you can just kind of touch here and just slowly be talking to them, and just with gravity and just kind of talking to them, you're just slowly pushing down, and pretty soon they're at neutral. They're at 90 where you want, and if they're not, you can help them a little bit. You certainly don't want to, be doing that on a fresh injury. It really hurts. But if you need to apply a little bit of pressure, you can. And also with gravity, it's naturally, if he drifts, he's going to drift that way rather than this way. If he's seated, he's going to have a tendency to drift toes down because that's relaxed. So there's 90 degrees. First thing that we're going to do is select the appropriate size stockinette. I'm going to choose 3-inch. 4 is going to be too big. 2 inches is going to be way too small. The important thing about this, try to pretend tomorrow that your patient's injured. Don't just put this on and start, putting it on really hard. Remember, this hurts, okay? So practice how it might be putting it on in a way that's, you don't just want to crank it on there. Remember, this is an injury, so it can take a little bit of time to get this in place. Sometimes the patient, and again, be careful where you're sort of touching and things like that. You're not mashing right on the site, so this can take a few minutes. How you doing, patient? You can talk to them. So how did you do this? And, all kinds of things. All right. Well, remember, we're going to leave a little bit long at the top and at the bottom. So you can see this is a skill in and of itself. And you want to avoid kind of having their foot moving a lot. And I'm going to go kind of quick. So you get the idea. Can I go a little quicker here? Just in the interest of time, I'm going to go a little quicker. But I wouldn't do this in real life. Okay, so I went a little bit longer. Tibial tuberosity, I went a little bit longer, and I went a little bit longer here because ultimately I want that to come back and do that. The other thing that you'll notice is you get some bunching up here, which is normal. I don't want to leave that in place. I want to cut that off, and this is the part that I was talking about. If you see a little bit of skin, it's okay. Don't panic. It's a lot better to have a little skin showing than to leave all this excess stuff. Okay, so that's pretty nice. We want to try to get it as smooth and even as possible. Neatness counts, particularly when it's touching the skin. Okay, next I'm going to choose some 3-inch cast padding. Okay, and I'm going to start distal, and remember again, I'm going to be a little further than what I want to end up at because I'm going to do some finishing. So maybe do 1 or 2 rolls, and then I'm going to start overlapping by half. So whether I'm doing a cast or a splint, at this point, everything is the same. The stockinette part's the same. The cast padding is the same. And really try to see what you're doing everywhere. If you don't like what it's doing, this stuff rips. Okay? If you don't like it, just rip it or cut it. And you want to overlap by about half. Particularly, you want to pad well at the bony prominences, and I'm going to come back there in a minute. And usually 2 to 3 rolls is about right. Let me show you another little trick that I love to do, particularly for the heel. I call this a heel plate. And this just makes sure that I have that heel really well padded. So I'm going to go maybe, getting tired, 3, 4 layers worth. Now I know that heel is really well padded. That's a heel plate. I like to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead with 1 more layer here, starting distal, moving proximal. And see, I'm not really cranking it tight, but I'm not loose. It fits. It needs to fit the patient. bony prominences, really, really important. Make sure that you're patting those bony prominences well. Okay, and then I'll just kind of feel, make sure. I'm going to do just a little bit more at the ankle here. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that. The rest of this, we'll go one more, but this is plenty. Okay, so that's the cast padding. Now, this is where we're going to go ahead, get our gloves on. Here's our dip water. Got everything prepared here. I've opened my packages. There's nothing worse than getting your hands wet and then have to open these packages. Okay, so I've opened 3 ace wraps. The first thing that you should do with the clips is throw them away. They're worthless. All right, so the clips are worthless. And I would have ordered the kind that has Velcro, but they're just too expensive. But if you have those kind and you have the ability and you're in your practice and you get to be the orderer, order the kind with the Velcro. It's nice. And the clips, throw them away. Okay, I've also opened up my my rolls here. Now let me show you how to make the sugar tongue. You need to measure because not everybody's exactly the same. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go down here with a roll. Okay, and I'm going to give you a break here. I'm just going to let you relax your leg down just like that. And I'm going to kind of use you as my table. So we're going to go about 10 thick. So there's 3, and it's usually about 2 rolls worth. Now don't worry if this doesn't end exactly where you want. This one did pretty much, but you can rip these. That's the other cool thing about plaster. You can just rip off what you don't like. Now let's say it went halfway down. I could leave it there. It may flop out, or I could cut it up so that it's even. It doesn't really matter. You want about 10 to 15, depending on the size of your patient. 12 is good. You know, and if you're going to waste the roll, you might as well just use it. So I'm going to finish this roll out. Okay, I'm just going to rip off the extra. Okay, so this is going to be my sugar tongue. Then I need my posterior reinforcement. Some of these already come pre-splint material like this. It's not in a roll. It's actually in a long box. And so I've already counted this out, and there's 10. Let's go ahead and bring your foot back up. I'm going to rip off some of this because it's extra. Let's see. I want about from here to, I'm not going to go all the way up to the top. I'm going to go up about 3/4 of the way. So you can just rip these. You see they rip nicely. And I'm actually going to rip it down here so that it's more even. Or you can cut them either way. But you can see that's pretty nice. That's going to be my posterior plate. Okay, so I have that ready. I have my aces ready to go. Okay, so now I'm ready to get these wet. And so here we go. The way that you do these, they're not rolls, so I don't drop them in vertically. I'm just going to go in like that, and then I'm going to take my fingers and try to get the water out like this. And you want to squeeze with your fingers because you want to get it what's called laminated really well, so all those bubbles sort of disappear. So I'm just going to kind of get it wet here, and I'm going to squeeze it out a little bit. And you can see it is a little messy. You're just going to try to squeeze out a lot of the water so that those dots disappear. Doesn't this look like fun? Isn't it worth all the lectures to get to do this? It's fun stuff. Okay. So, some people put the other part on first. I like to put this part on first. Some people put this step. I just find that this works better. So we're going to do the same thing here. So you can see a lot of those little dots have disappeared. That's going to give you good integrity. It's going to be strong. So here's our posterior plate. I'm at the place that I want, 90 degrees. I'm going to do my finishing at this point. Whoop, splash myself in the face. That's always good. You can fold it if you need to. Okay, now this is the important part. This is where we're going to wrap with our aces. Okay, so this is where you want it to be a little bit, you want it to fit. You don't want it to be overly snug, but it should fit, particularly at the ankle. Because I want him to be immobilized at that site. So you can see this is going to be very comfortable. Feeling comfortable? Legs getting tired? Feels like a Cadillac. All right. And this does have a little bit of Velcro. How about that? How nice of them. They give you both. Okay, I'm going to do just a little bit of molding here, so I want to make sure it's molded well at the ankle. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure. You never want to, let's say he's way drifted, you never want to, now that this is on, crank him into position, because the integrity of that cast, or splint rather, is weakened. So you want to always get it in position when you place it, not put it in a position after it's already on. And really I only need one other ace, and you don't really need to do 3. I have 3 ready, but I'm pretty much done at this point. So any questions about the Cadillac at this point? Everybody happy with that? This is a splint. It is a 3/4 cast, technically, but it is, I would call this a sugar tong with a posterior reinforcement. And I'd probably hold him here, and at this point I'd have him turn over, and the way to do that is I hold this and have you kind of turn. You want to protect this, and I wouldn't want him to lay this down here because it's going to get flat, so I would have you actually sit up and come off this way, and I'd have him just hang down here for about half an hour before he goes home. Or I could prop him up, but I really don't want it laying on anything, even a pillow, because that can dent in that. It'll flatten and it'll dry that way. So there's an example of a Cadillac. So any questions about that so far? Okay. Next, yes? No, not meant to be weight bearing at all. No, meant to have crutches, toe touch, and follow up in a few days. This is just to get them through the initial phases. Next, what we're going to do is have you turn this way. We're going to do your other foot. And Tom, let's see, let me I'm going to turn a little bit here. We're going to do assume that he's coming in now a week later to orthopedics, and we're going to put a cast on. Yeah, you stay. You're fine. Okay. Will that help, Tom? Okay. Next, we're going to do this foot over here, so if you can't see, kind of get to where you need to be. It's nice if you have a cast stand, and we will have these available for you tomorrow, but you don't always have them. And you want to just hang their toes on it. Okay, now the thing about this, you always want to protect yourself, so have a stool or a chair. Sometimes if I don't have anything in the room, I put their toes on my chair, boxes, whatever you can find, but you really want to try to, this is hard to do in the prone position, so when you're, I just broke the clip, Tom. Sorry, put it in my pocket. Can't take me anywhere. Okay, so you want to just hang. Now, be careful that they're not too far down, because then you will find that you're not going as far as you need, so just try to get them to hang their toes. The other thing is just to have them relax their leg, and see when he relaxes his leg, it puts him at 90. So it's your job to make sure before you start that you're at 90. Otherwise, you can see if they just sat here without this, he's going to drift down into plantar flexion, which is not what we want. Okay, so everything is exactly the same in the beginning. So we're going to do the stockinette again. We're going to do cast padding. Okay. So let's slide this on. Go ahead and lift up. And a lot of times I'll let the patient help me. So if you can help, and let's just say, I don't. In the interest of time, I'm going to go quick here, a little quicker. I would not do this on a real patient. I wouldn't be that rough with them. But if they can help, it's helpful. Yeah. Sometimes it gives them something to do. Okay. So you can do that too. There's lots of different ways. And again, back to that position. I'm going to cut off all this excess. Always when you're cutting, know where their toes are, okay? So I always sort of check first. You'd be surprised. These scissors they cut pennies. So they'll injure you if you try to cut somebody's toe off. It will. They work. Okay. I've seen people injure patients, not completely cut a toe off, but have to be really pretty negligent for that one. Okay. All right, so this is, everything is good. Tibial tuberosity, ready to go with our cast padding. Okay, so all right. And this is where you can actually, you have to really go by feel a lot of times, or if you can't feel, go down and look. You need to make sure that you're doing a good job at the heel. And I will incorporate another little heel plate. I just think that's a really good method. I always know that I've done the heel well by doing that. If you don't, it can get thin down there, and they can end up with pressure sores, particularly diabetics. You'll take a cast off, and they'll have wounds underneath from pressure. So you have to be careful. So tibial tuberosity, I'm going to go a little bit high because I want to have a little bit for finishing at the top there. So I'm going to stop right about there, and let's make a little cast plate. Actually, that's too small. Get rid of that. That's a nice thing. You can kind of be creative with this stuff as long as it's within the rules. And you'll see a lot of different techniques and how people do things. Okay, so this is going to be my plate. And it may flop on me. This is where it's nice to have an extra pair of hands. Actually, can you reach that far down? Sometimes I actually give my patients gloves if you know, if you need them to help, particularly if you're doing a splint. In this position, they can just hold the top of it. Most of the time, patients aren't going to be able to help that much. Okay, thank you. Okay. Believe it or not, you know, they tolerate it well. They may not in the beginning. You have to kind of hang them, and then what I do is, a lot of times they're really tight up here. You can just kind of slowly with time just keep working them. And as they sit here and as you're wrapping them, you can get them into 90 degrees. They are reluctant to do it, but if you do it slowly, if you grab it and, you know, I need to get this 90 degrees, then they guard right away. But if you just tell them, this is what we're looking for, we have to get it in that position before you leave. It's very important. And then you can just slowly, with time, they'll relax and you can go slow. And they'll get in that. Once they get in that position, it actually feels really comfortable. Once they're in neutral position, they actually are very comfortable. So, okay, so everything up to this point was the same. Okay, whether you're doing a splint or a cast. And so let's see, tibial tuberosity. I'm down. I might take just a little bit more at the bottom here, just for my finishing. I want to make sure I've got good padding. Okay. Next, we're going to have our 3 rolls of plaster, 4-inch, ready to go, and out of the packages so that you don't have to struggle with wet hands opening the packages. Okay. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to drop it in vertically. I'm going to give it a second, not too long. Wait till the bubbles sort of stop. Okay. And I'm going to squeeze the top and the bottom. Trying to get most of the water out through the middle. Notice I found my end, so I don't have to struggle with it. I know exactly where it is. Okay, and I'm going to roll it on the patient. So I'm not going to, in other words, I'm not going to do this and then pull and wrap. I'm going to actually put it on the patient, roll it on the patient. If at any time you don't like how it's going, cut it and start over. Okay, so you are in charge, not the roll. So see how I'm keeping it always touching him. I'm just rolling it where it wants to go. Now occasionally it'll want to go somewhere I don't want. I can put it how I want it to be. And for the people that are on this side, they'll be able to see I'm doing these little tucks. And it's usually going to be on the left-hand side. Let's see if I can get one. Rolling by about half, like right here. I'm going to do a little triangular tuck at the bottom. And And we'll show you that in lab if you're having trouble. But basically it's a way for you to control where the roll is going. It fits. It's not tight, but it actually is right on where it needs to go. You don't want it to be excessively tight, and you don't want it to be full of air. This is called laminating. You just want to get rid of all those little dots without pushing with your fingers. Sometimes I'll even do a plate made out of plaster, and I think we'll be okay. But if I really think I need extra, I will have prepared a little plate and incorporated that in just for a little bit of extra strength back there, especially if I think they're going to be toe touching. This is not meant to be walked on. Okay, again, here's my end. I always know where it is. Get most of the water out through the center so that I know it's well laminated or well saturated throughout. Okay, so here's my second roll, and in a minute I'm going to do the finishing. So how's it feel, patient? All right. And then it'll get warm in a little bit here. And so you'll all get to experience that, so you'll know what that feels like, so you can always prepare your patient, tell them about it. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to do again some more laminating. You can really laminate at the end. Just want to get rid of all those little dots so that it's going to be strong. Okay, at this point, this is where we're going to do our finishing. See how that beautiful cuff, isn't that nice? Yay, thank you. Okay, and same thing down here. You really want it to be finished well so that it will last and be durable and they won't be digging at it, putting things in it. Okay, and put our toes back up. Now the last roll is just going to catch that, and we're pretty much finished. So any questions about the splint versus the cast so far? Look like fun? They do get loose. They get smelly. Usually you want them in it for 5 to 10 days and then come back and have a cast change. Ultimately it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks in this process. Sometimes they'll be in the original one. Most of the time they're going to have at least one cast change or one change out. But they may be in it for several weeks. So yeah, they can get loose, especially that's why you wouldn't put this on initially, in the initial injury phase. Okay, so this last roll is the one that you especially want to look good. That's one that's more of a long leg. But yes, you just want to pad well with the malleoli, no matter what you're doing, but especially if you're doing a long leg, because it's going to ride on their ankle. So, but this one was padded really well with their malleoli and their heel. And the big things again, the landmarks are, what's the upper landmark, everybody? Tibial tuberosity. And what's the lower landmark? Just the metatarsal heads. And then the what's the most important thing at the ankle? 90 degrees. Right? What did you all say? Padding. Okay. And 90 degrees. Good. Good. All right. Well, let's let this dry, and then we're going to take it off with the cast saw. And we have a new patient now who's come in. And so I normally wouldn't have you walk all over with this, but I'm going to have you hobble over somewhere. And we have Emma now, who's in the same skiing accident. They ran into each other on the black slope. Okay. Ta-da. All right, so let's have you hop off. Okay. Emma, well, let's have you have a seat there. Emma broke her fall with an outstretched hand. So we are going to do let's do a wrist splint first. Oh, thank you. And again, always protect your patient's clothing as best as possible and your environment. Okay, so now we're going to use a 2-inch stockinette. All right. And so, again, she's got an injury, so we're going to go carefully and not just cram it on there. Okay, so we'll go real carefully. So I want you to practice this because this is an art. You know, sometimes in lab people are just like putting it on. It's like, oh, you'd never do that in real life. Okay, so here we want to, our landmarks, let's do a volar wrist splint. Okay, so she's got a very stable radial fracture, so we're actually not going to take it above the elbow, so I'm going to take it 2 finger breadths below the elbow, and I want to go to the distal palmar crease. So again, where are my fingers? I want to make sure I'm not, you know, cutting them. Yeah! Whoops. That's the suture lab. Okay. So, and then a tiny hole for the thumb, and usually you can let the patients bring their thumb out. Again, so it's okay if a little bit of skin is you know, showing that the thumb there. This is all going to be pulled down in a minute. Okay, so now we want to remember our position of function, so go ahead and grab that. And so you can see that we want her in a little bit of extension. So you need to just be checking and checking. Okay, so now you keep your hand like that, and I'm going to steal this out. So that's what we want. And notice she's not in flexion. She's not excessively extended, but she's not completely neutral. She's cranked back in the extended position. Lots of ways to pad the thumb. Here's a couple of my favorites. It's really important to pad the thumb. The thing that bothers people the most is rubbing right in here by the plaster material. So you want to try to pad really well in that area. So I'm going to do a little plate just like before, but maybe only 3 thick or so. I'm going to make a little hole. Okay, and that is a great way to pad the thumb. Okay, another way, I'm just going to do another way. You can do a half like this. It's like a one of those ribbons. Okay, that's a nice little way also. So I'm going to do both of those actually, and that'll stay. And we'll get another 2-inch. 2 inch is good. Don't use too thick a padding on the upper extremity. So I'm pretty well padded at the hand and the wrist. Again, bony prominences, so the radial and ulnar styloid needs to be padded well, overlapping by about half, avoiding wrinkles. Going to go up a little higher than what I'm going to end up because I'm going to pull it back down. Okay, and then I just do sort of a check. It feels like I'm well padded. This is a good position right here. It's sort of like the shaking hand, because at the end, that's what you're going to do. You're going to just hold them like that and mold them into place. Okay, so I'm in pretty good position. Let's see, I may want to go just a little further down. Not real happy at the end there. One time. Another thing is the half moon. If you're having trouble with the thumb, it's like a Pac-Man bite. That's another little method. So any of those 3 work well for the thumb. So the thumb gives you issues. Do the plate with the hole. Do the fold over ribbon. You know, you all know what a ribbon looks like. Or you can do the Pac-Man bite. All of those are Karen Newell things. You won't see that in a book, but it works. So we're going to end up with that in a minute. Okay, so now we're ready for our gloves and our volar plate. Now we could do a sugar tong. If we were going to do a sugar tong, I would have padded above the elbow. Right, I would have taken this up, padded above the elbow, and I would have taken and this is a choice for you tomorrow. You can do, I don't care if you do a sugar tong or a volar plate. A volar plate, you don't have to pad above the elbow because it's just going to be right here, rigid material. If you're doing a sugar tong, it's going to go like this around the elbow and come back. So you need to take your padding up a little higher. Either way is fine. For today, we're just going to do the volar splint. So what I need to get ready is some 2-inch ace wraps. Let's get about, we're probably going to use 2, but we're always going to be prepared because we're a good PA. We're going to have 3, again, opened up already. And what do we do with the clips? Throw them away. Worthless. Okay. Some of these don't even have clips. Okay. We've got those 3 opened up. And now we want our splint material. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go to 12. And let's make sure it fits. So we're going to end up going from here to there. So I'm going to rip some of this off. And it's too wide for her. I don't need it that big, so you can actually rip it or cut it. It does rip really pretty well. That's why I really like it. Sorry about the dust in your face. Now she's got, what, asbestosis or something? Mesothelioma? Okay. Different lecture. Okay. Only medical humor. Okay. So we're ready to go. So we've got our ace wrap. We've checked our position of function. Okay, so here we are. And it's helpful if you have a spare hand, but you usually don't, so you can practice what it's like on your own. All right, and actually I'm going to turn your hand just for a second up like this. And with your fingers, can you just hold that? That's great. All right. And I'm going to start right at the wrist, because that's the part I really want locked in. And this one's not a real big one. I could go much, if she were a male, a lot more muscle, I'd make this a whole lot more big. But this will hold her in place. She doesn't need a huge thing until she gets to see ortho in a couple of days. Okay, now we'll let you let go. Okay, now I'll bring you back down like this. Okay, one more ace wrap. Should do it again. If I don't like the way this is, I'm going to cut out a little Pac-Man bite. That's the good thing about all this stuff. You know, if you don't like where it is, fix it. Because you don't want bulk. You don't want a lot of, you can do a twist. Some people do a little twist in there. There's all kinds of little methods. After the first time through, I'm okay with a twist, but I don't want a lot of twisty stuff in there. Bulk, a lot of bulk. She should be able to touch her fingers afterwards. Pretty comfortable? Mm-hmm. Not too tight? Fingers aren't turning blue? Okay. And so, make sure you're, sometimes I'll reinforce this with a little bit of tape. It's also a good idea. Little silk tape. Come back, make sure we've got a good position here, like that. She can touch her fingers, and she's very well padded in here, very comfortable. There's nothing rubbing, because that is the part that's irritating right in here. They come in, they have cuts in here, and they start digging and modifying. And so anyway, it's doing what it needs to do. It's keeping her in the volar position. Again, if I was a lot more worried about this, I would pad above. I would take it all the way around. That way she's not going to have the rotational ability. But I think for a lot of very stable wrist injuries, this is adequate. If you're not sure, nobody would fault you for taking it around the elbow. So, any questions about a volar wrist splint or a sugar tongue upper extremity? Everybody happy with that?
In regards to the circulation, I know a lot of patients will have some continued swelling.
Mm-hmm.
We're not wrapping it too tight, but what's a good
Yeah.
thing to do if they come back to, like, you know, my fingers are blue? Or
Yeah.
should we warn them about that?
The fingers should not be blue. If they're blue, they need to come back, and you sometimes need to take it down and look. If you're not sure, take it down and look. But explain to them, elevating is like this. She needs to go home, get pillows right here, and prop it up like this, and relax it against something. However, you know, a chair, you know, laying in bed, but it needs to be really propped up in this position. The hand needs to be higher, so this is not even really elevated. It really needs to be this way above the heart. So, you know, you have to find creative positions in order to prop somebody up. But don't just tell them elevating, because they'll go home and do that, which is better than that, but it's not helping us a whole lot. You really want that, and you can show them that. And with, you know, most of the time with elevation, especially the first 48 hours, they'll have a decrease in swelling. We have one more quick thing to do. We're going to cut that cast off and let you guys go. We're slated for 12:20, running about 5 minutes off. Okay, so we're going to do a quick upper extremity cast now. So everything is exactly the same. And again, I'll have you help me with your other arm as best you can. Get my supplies ready here. 2 inch is good. Again, a good choice. Choosing the right materials will help you a lot. So if you're not sure tomorrow, ask, and we can help guide you with what you should choose. And I'll have posters on the wall that says approximately what you should get for each thing. Supplies. You getting warm? Okay. Comfortable? Or does it feel okay? Oh yeah. All right, so here we go. So everything's the same up to this point. So I'm going to cut, again, I'm going to find my fingers there. I'm going to get my thumb hole ready. And this is all going to be pulled down in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to put her at 90 degrees. And if I were doing a sugar tongue, I'd cut this off just like I did the ankle. But in a minute, this is all going to come down. So I'm going to put her in the correct position, which is just like that. Make sure you pat them in the correct position. You don't want to pat them in another position and then crank them into the correct position. Then you got all this padding that's sort of in your way. This time, let's do a little Pac-Man way to start. Okay, so you can kind of see some of the differences of how you could get around that thumb. We'll go kind of quick here. And you don't want excessive padding, just the right amount of padding, particularly the radial and ulnar styloids. So let's do another little plate here. Okay. Isn't that nice? I just like that. It's so nice. And then this just really finishes it off. Just, there you go. Comfort.
Beautiful.
Yes, it's a work of art. Right? Okay. Maybe a little more right in there. And she's drifting, so you have to kind of keep checking. Keep checking. It's your job to keep checking. Okay, pretty happy with that? Okay, we've got my 3, and we've got the correct position, so we're pretty much ready to go. All right, so let's drop these in. And it's hard to squeeze these little ones out because they're small. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start right in there. And again, I'm going to let the roll go where it wants to go. You can also do that same kind of plate with the plaster. So like if I wanted right here, I would probably take the time and cut a little Pac-Man. I'm just going to sort of go through there, but you just want to avoid bulk, a lot of bulk in that site. You can do a twist, you can do a pinch, lots of different things. Okay, number 2. I could switch to a 3-inch for her forearm if I wanted. Probably would be a good idea, but we've got number 2 here, so. But you could just kind of look at the size of your patient, and you'll get to know what size is appropriate for different people. As you can see, 2 inches is pretty small. It's great for down at the hand, but 3 would probably be more appropriate up high. Keep checking. Because your patients, you'll be surprised at the end, you'll be like, oh, how did that happen? You know, we had that in this perfect position. Okay. You're going to laminate a little bit. And we're going to bring this down with a nice little cuff. And this is probably excessive. I didn't need all this. Especially since when you cut this off, I probably would take the time and cut this off, because when you hit that with the cast saw, that kind of thing. So for the poor person taking it off, we should probably take the time and cut all that off before we put on our next layer, but we won't today. But we should. Okay. And our last one. any questions about this? We're going to just cut one of them off, and then you guys are free. Okay, so I'm going to go start in here. Maybe we won't start in there. Start over here. Notice we're leaving a lot of exposed padding, but that's good because we like the padding. We don't want plaster rubbing on the skin. And that padding will start to kind of, you know, fall apart a little bit. But again, this is fairly temporary. Yeah, 3-inch would be better on her forearm. This is really small, too small. Great for the hand, though. Okay, and I'd probably finish this up, take it all the way to the top, okay? And we're just going to kind of finish it like this. And I'd probably do a little bit more down in here, too. In the interest of time, we will stop. But here is how you laminate. In the very end, you're going to hold this and just kind of hold as it's getting warm. You want to be holding that position. You don't want to be pushing with your fingers. But see how this is molded? With some of you, it's going to look like a big log. It's just going to look like this big round. It should look like an arm. It should have the normal contours of the arm. She should have some extension, and that thumb can touch that finger, and it should be relatively comfortable. I mean, it's tight. It's not going to allow a lot of motion. Now, if I was going to incorporate her thumb, I'd actually, you know, pat it all the way, and I'd actually incorporate it. But this is more for a wrist injury. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, let's switch out patients again. So now you're off and Matt's back. This is a busy ortho office. Okay, so now we're going to get ready for cast off. So if you've never had a cast, you've never had a cast removed. So please all make sure that you wear goggles tomorrow. So the person who's cutting as well as the person who's the patient. Let's see, I'm going to let you lie on back. Okay, and if you could turn to the side just a bit. So actually, I want to start with, okay, that was good, either way, so that your toes are pointed toward them. Yeah, if you can, that'd be great. Okay. We get our cast saw ready here, our spreader. Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, nice. See, I've got a good assistant here. Okay, so before we do this, we're going to get their reassurance. Essentially what you want to try to do is go down the side, go past the point that you're trying to get to, and then go this way. And for you guys, you'll get to see it in a minute when we're on this side. I have small hands, and so I like to hold with one hand and use the other hand on the patient. Use this thumb, being careful not to touch myself, but I'm going to go up and down like this. This really helps if you have small hands. If you try to do this, you don't have any control. If they move or whatever, I always like to have a hand on them. If they move, you know, it's sort of like a stable. So I'm going to go up and down, then I'm going to go this way. Okay? Everybody ready? Ready, patient? It's very noisy. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to flip, so we're going to go this way. All right.
Are you pushing it all the way in?
All the way in until it stops. Until it stops. You will feel it is a distinct endpoint. So try not to, in the beginning, students like to go, and then they go back and forth, and it's going to get hot and hot and hot. So you really want to go down, up. Down until it stops. It's an end point, and you're hitting padding. It won't cut the padding. I know I'm fogging up here. So
you can feel it against your skin.
You can feel it. Go, Tom. Okay. And again, these are real wet, so they're not going through, normally it's going to go through a whole lot better. When it's dry, it goes through really well. We're going to put this in, and hopefully, this is the other thing, look at your cast when you take it off. See if it looks pretty, if there's spots where you were thicker or thinner, but it should be pretty equidistant everywhere. Let's have you flip that way, same thing. So this will give you a good idea of what you need to do a better job with. There we got a little crack. Okay, and then next, and again, we're running out of time here, but I would take the scissors and just very carefully and slowly, be careful because you can dig in a little bit. You want to, when you get to this point tomorrow, really do it. Don't just yank it off or whatever. Try like it's a real patient and you're going really gentle and careful, because this is sometimes the hardest part. Just like the stockinette is the hardest part, taking this off, going really slowly, cutting along the whole way here, here, there, and you should take it off in 2 distinct pieces. So actually do that. Don't just sort of rip it off. I want you to practice that part of it. So we're pretty much done. If you all want to go, I'm going to do it kind of quickly if you want to watch. And so have fun. Have a good lunch. Sorry we went over a little bit there. Thank you, patients.
I can do it.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to clean up. All right. Thank you, Tom.